Hello everyone, as you've read from the title of this video, I am taking 64 of the top tag teams of all time, putting them together in one big-ass tournament to decide who is the greatest tag team of all time, the GO Tag Team, as this is going to be 32 teams per block. There's going to be 2 blocks, is basically how we're going to set this up. It's very interesting that we're starting the video right here on the event screen, just because it's easier to kind of explain the schedule. So we're going to take these 64 teams, break them up into 2 blocks, but for the settings of this video, this is going to be under blocks. We're not going to call them blocks, we're going to call them leagues. So it's going to be 2 different leagues, 32 teams in each league. And it's basically, the idea behind this is making it a real sports setting. This idea came from back in October of 2020. I did a real world draft series. I think it was our 3rd one we ever did. And instead of recording it, I just was like, oh, we're going to draft nothing but tag teams, just to make it a little bit more fun and exciting and kind of fuck a lot of people over in the process. But it was actually a really fun idea, and I was like, man, this is such a cool concept. So basically what I did there was I drafted 20 teams and I split up 10 and 10. That was the idea behind that. And here, I wanted to make it a bigger scale to do it on YouTube. So we have 64 of, in my opinion, some of the greatest tag teams of all time. Hopefully I didn't miss any, big time tag teams. There might be some that, we'll talk about, kind of that miss the cut, that I'll talk about a little bit. But really, I felt like the 64 of some of the, tag teams that maybe are just great in-ring wise, obviously great all around the world. I try to kind of cover every aspect of the world with my pick, and just, really the idea behind this is to make it like a real sport, and that is what we're going to go about this as. It's going to go over 31 regular season games, if you will, so it's going to be basically 62 full-time schedule, starting from January to August. It's going to be a long-ass time, basically every Saturday and every Sunday. As you can see, the 2 leagues are called the Premier League and the National League. Real original stuff, I know, as you wait until you see the logos for the Premier League. Real original stuff there. So once we get to that, we're going to take a month break till the end of September, where it's going to be the All-Star Showdown show, which I'm going to take basically 10 of the top performers, basically calling them all-stars. We'll have the starters, and then we'll have the bench. And basically it's going to come down to 5 versus 5 Premier League guys and 5 National guys battling out the, for the all-star supremacy. Then there'll be another one, another 5v5, where it's kind of like the backup guys, the bench guys, if you will. Basically like how in basketball there's, your starting 5 of the all-star game, and then there's kind of the bench guys. It's kind of that kind of format. As once we get to the end of the regular season, after we break it down to 32 and 32, basically we're going to be keeping an eye on the standings throughout the videos. Basically, we're going to run every 4 shows. We're going to run an episode, besides this intro episode, because this intro episode, depending on how long it takes, we might run a show or 2, who knows, but just right now, the idea is not to do that. The idea is just kind of showcase what we're doing as far as product-wise, how everything's going to be set up and whatnot, and of course the roster and whatnot. But so once we get down to the end of the regular season, I'm going to take the top 16 teams that finished throughout the season. We're going to put them in a 16-team single elimination tournament to find out who is going to be the winner of the playoffs. As we're going to have basically the regular season winner, which will be crowned by basically who's the leading points getter of the season, the best tag team, and then we'll take our 16, put them in the playoffs, and have a single elimination tournament, 16 teams, to find out who is the absolute best. As far as how that was going to be decided, at the beginning, I was thinking of just taking 8 teams from the Premier League and then 8 teams from the National League and put them into the playoffs, but I feel like it's a lot more fun, a lot more entertaining if we just take the top 16. It doesn't matter which side they're on, if they're on the National side or the Premier side. Doesn't matter. We're just going to put them all under one roof as far as the playoffs goes. I just feel like an open seating is a lot more fair and it's a lot more fun. So without further ado, before we get into showcasing the roster, we kind of see a little bit of who's on this roster to begin with the product. So when I did the product from the Real World Draft kind of thing I did, I did it under the No Style product. But now we're going to do wrestling as a sport, because I feel like that's what we're going for. We're making this a sport, making this a legitimate sport. The problem is, what I would have loved is that No Style is perfect because I have so many different guys on my roster that could fit so many different boxes and so many different styles. It would be a lot more fun to do that. The problem is I'd have to do probably like 3 or 4 angles per show, where this, no angles at all, it's just pure fucking wrestling, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. That's what we're coming down to and making it a lot more important. But yeah, so we can't do any like bloody stuff, we can't do anything like that, but I think it's going to be a lot more fun. It's going to be exciting to do it this style, at least. We'll see how it goes, though. But one thing is for sure, I have a lot of different ideas to keep this going. The next one I want to do is going to be a trio. So we're going to do the best, 3-man stable trios, however you want to call them. We're going to do that next. We're going to do, again, 32 and 32. Then I'm going to start going into other different venues. Like, I'm going to do the top 100 wrestlers, in my opinion. So it's going to be 50 and 50. I'm going to do one where it's going to be, I think, nothing but juniors. I think it's going to do the top 100 junior heavyweights. And I'm trying to think what else. I know I'm going to do a woman one. A lot of different ones. The mod we're using for this is basically I've combined the World of the Immortals, the giant-ass World of the Immortals, plus adding in a lot of the real world data and stats for a lot of guys to kind of get the best mix of combining the legends with the current guys. I feel like that's a great little blend. We'll see how it plays out. Well, I'm going to use this, I call it the sandbox. It's just what I call it. It's officially, just a little mod I created. It's not like an official mod or anything. But we're going to use this mod in a lot of other different videos as well. I have a lot of different ideas. But that's just kind of the basis behind the ideas behind that. Just a little fun thing, our announcers for the national team is going to be Jim Ross and Bobby Heenan, which I feel like what a dream announcing team. And then for the Premier League, we're going to keep Jim Ross, but we're going to add Paul Heyman with it, because I love that team of him and Paul. I thought they were great. So yeah, that is where we're at. Most of the idea behind this right now is I'm kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. At first, I was going to go with just having the computer decide on who's going to win, who's going to lose. But I feel like I could do this again, the same type of format and the same style, and do it in Fire Pro down the line. I just like an idea to have to just see how Fire Pro runs this. We're doing it as a simulation. Now we can put it in a simulation that's going to showcase actual unique shit, and having a fun time watching the product and seeing how that unfolds in Fire Pro. So I'm going to choose who wins and who loses and whatnot, and kind of book it like I'm a wrestling promoter. So that's going to be a lot of fun. In that, I think we're going to have a lot of fun outcomes and just kind of see how it goes and whatnot. But I think that's all the backstory stuff we need to look over. I guess we can look at the titles just really, really quickly to see what is going on. So this is what the big prize is for. The ATTL, the All-Time Tag League Champions, as is a ring. That's a little, basically how, they have the Super Bowl ring or whatnot. I feel like that's a fun way of going about it. The ATTL MVP, which is another ring. So basically the #1 wrestler that came out of the All-Time Tag League at I believe it's going to be at the All-Star Showdown show. It might be somewhere else. Not really exactly sure when I'm going to do this, but it's going to be a 10-person battle royal to officially crown it. Really, it's going to come down to who's the best, actual performer. But that's going to be a fun way of having an MVP. We have the regular season leader, which is basically who wins the regular season, who's the #1 team. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I made it for National Week 31. It depends on how it goes as far as going down to the wire. Is it going to be determined at the Premier last show or the National last show? So we'll have to change that accordingly. And then, of course, the champions of the actual, the National Tag champions. And then we have the Premier Team champions. So who's ever leading that, the block division, whichever you want to, league as we will call it. There's so many different ways you can go about it, but they're leagues for us. So we have the Premier Team League winner, and then the National Team League winner, which will be crowned at the end of the season. So that's, we're going to have a lot of trophies, and not really championships, more trophies is what we're going for. So without further ado, I think now it's time to reveal what our 64 teams are. We are starting with the Premier League, which we're going to have a little bit more fun as far as how we're going to go about this. As you see there, we're going to do the logos right here on this main screen. It's just a lot of fun. Obviously, a lot of original, innovative shit with that Premier League logo. It's not like we just completely stole that from a soccer or football logo. Not at all. That is not where we got that from. I promise you. So the first team. Now these teams reveals this is not like any type of order. This is just from how I loaded up the logos and made it like in order. There's no order to them at all. This is completely random as far as the order goes. But each 32 team that was chosen to be in each league was chosen by me. As far as the idea behind it was, there was some thought behind that. But as far as this order goes, no thought behind it at all. This is completely random. So the first team, it is the Revival. As they are going by the Revival instead of FTR. Just I feel like the FTR name is very, I wouldn't say generic, but it's not as good as the Revival. I love that name, and I love just the idea behind it. So the Revival, Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder, as they're going to be known by, not the other name for FTR, just to make sense. And of course, we wouldn't have an all-time tag league without having the Revival and the Young Bucks in it as well. So yeah, I mean, obviously the dream match there that came to life thanks to ATTL, but now we can do it here at the all-time tag league as they are part of the same division, so they have to wrestle each other. As again, keeping up with the Premier League and kind of what it's about, I feel like the Hardy Boys establish what this is all about as far as innovative tag teams. I mean, they really set the ground for what tag teams became in the next generations, especially the Young Bucks, and especially taking what the Rockers did and taking what the Rock and Roll Express did of the the 80s and taking that, adding it some extreme to it, and being over as fuck in the meantime. And talk about one of the most over tag teams of all time. They definitely deserve to be a part of this top 64 teams of all time. Hardy Boys for sure, definitely in the top 5. As the Kings of Wrestling, Claudio Castagnoli and Chris Hero, feel like they deserve this as well. I mean, talk about, it's kind of crazy how short their run is, but honestly, mid-2000s, they were one of the top 5 tag teams in the world, easily. I mean, they were fantastic, had some great matches. I think their biggest kind of thing that, as far as comparing the other teams, they didn't have that great opponent. They didn't have an opponent they could wrestle these all-time matches with. They could just kind of wrestle anybody and everybody, and they wrestled, of course, Chikara mainly, and wrestled in Ring of Honor for a good bit. I think they only were a tag team probably from 2007, I want to say, maybe 2008 to like 2011, 2012, if that. Just a very short time frame when you think about it, comparing to a lot of these tag teams you'll see. But, I mean, they were just fantastic as a whole. As the next tag team, DIY, hashtag DIY, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa. Again, a team that they're in kind of the early, mid-2010s. Was a great tag team, one of the best tag teams in the world. I feel like as far as in the top 64 tag teams of all time, they're kind of maybe in the mid-tier, maybe in the 40s, 50s all-time-wise. I guess that might be outlandish to say, but I really do feel like they were a phenomenal team. They were just kind of showcased on like NXT and not like a big name, like like on the main roster or anything like that, or like WWE in like the mid-2000s or something like that, where they were just if they were at that point. Obviously, it's apples to oranges as far as comparison-wise, as far as a lot of these teams and their spotlight and their showcase being on like a main product or whatnot. I just feel like in-ring-wise, again, we're talking about in-ring-wise, with a lot of these teams, they were a great tag team, and they still are a great tag team. And whenever they team up, but just at the mid-2010s, when they were both kind of baby faces before Tommaso turned, just thought like they were a great tag team all time-wise. I think they deserve to be on this, in this roster of the all-time tag league. As our next team, Kenta Fuji, Naomichi Marufuji and Kenta. my God. I mean, talking about junior tag teams as a whole, one of the greatest junior tag teams of all time. Phenomenal singles wrestlers that in their very, very early on in their careers, I mean, they were the GHC, the first GHC junior tag team champions. They were junior tag team champions for 609 days. Just phenomenal stuff that they had. You know, they had some great matches throughout the years. And really, if they were to come together now, that's kind of the thought process behind this, is they're still in their junior stage here in this tournament, as you can see from their rosters and whatnot, and their stats. Very much from that junior mid-2000s era of both these guys. But if you took these guys now, and their heavyweight forms, put them together and had a tag run, still a great tag team. I mean, it's crazy how great these guys are. Obviously, Kenta being in this is going to be a lot more beneficial than Naomichi Marufuji as far as pop goes. Because this is going to be a big thing with a lot of those Japanese tag teams, is pop's going to play a big factor for a lot of these teams. We're going to try to run shows everywhere just to kind of get a nice basis for a lot of these tag teams, so it's an even playing field. But for the Japanese tag teams specifically, it's going to be tough for them, because they're going to have to deal with the pop difference between a lot of these tag teams. Our next tag team, one of the greatest tag teams of all time, the British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith and Dynamite Kid. I mean, Dynamite Kid, granted, a giant piece of shit outside the ring, but even inside the ring, you know what he did to Mick, breaking his jaw and being a real piece of shit. That wasn't fun, but as far as in-ring wise, one of the greatest junior heavyweights of all time, one of the greatest, technically, wrestlers of all time. Just phenomenal talent in the ring. Davey Boy was, you know, a great tag team guy and a great heavyweight wrestler as well, but really more, if you know, his Intercontinental title match with Brett, it really gets talked about a lot, because I think it's a great match as well. But as far as them together, they're a tremendous tag team. There's so much shit that's kind of done today that has a lot of, you know, homage to the Bulldogs. As you know, with I want to say Tyson Kidd and Claudia, when they did the elbow drop off the top, when Claudia would hold him up and Kidd would stand on his shoulders. That was very much, and then even Jack Evans and Roddy Strong, they did the homage to the Bulldogs, where Roddy would have him up in the fucking basically setting up like he's about to do a burning hammer. Jack would jump on the dude and then do like either a Phoenix Splash in some cases or 450 Splash. And so just revolutionary tag team. They had to be on this Premier League. They had to be in it. And they were here in the Premier League as well, so that's kind of fun. I think as far as a lot of dream matches are going to happen here. So the Usos, the next tag team, I think the Usos, babyface, like face paint Usos, I personally think they were a fun team even then, but definitely when they stopped the face paint and kind of became more serious and started having some swagger out there, they were a fantastic team for sure. And I think as far as top 64 tag teams of all time, I think they definitely deserve some talk and consideration, that's for sure, especially during this era. There's going to be a lot of current tag teams. It's just kind of, it's hard to judge a lot of these current teams when you think of the scope of tag teams as a whole, but I feel like there's a lot of teams that kind of deserve to be a part of this, and the Usos for sure deserve to be on this, and they're a hell of a team. Can't wait to see them in the Bucks. Yeah, obviously they were the Bucks' kind of dark match that they had for WWE back in, I want to say 2013 or 14 maybe even before then. It was definitely early on. It was like early 2010s, and it was them and the Usos in a fucking dark match pre-show for Regal before the show. And I was a barn burner for sure, because those two teams, I mean, they need to wrestle. They just need to wrestle, them and the Bucks. The Usos, I feel like they deserve to be on here. Our next tag team, the American Wolves, Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards. Davey, again, in the same vein of Dynamite Kid, are kind of a piece of shit outside the ring, but inside the ring, really during the late 2000s, I felt like they were a tremendous tag team. I felt like they were one of the best tag teams in the world. Davey and Eddie, Davey, is the same way as kind of Dynamite Kid, just technically so sound. It has that kind of same formula of him. With Eddie Edwards, I think Eddie is tremendous. I think Eddie's peak kind of happened post-American Wolves, if I'm going to be honest, as far as his like in-ring career-wise. But, you know, this was a great tag team during the mid and late 2000s. They had some great matches throughout the years. They were a tremendous team. I felt like they deserved to be here, especially in the Premier League. I felt like they could definitely have some great matches like them and the Usos, them and the Revival, them and Kings of Wrestling, you know, and them and DIY. There's just so many teams that they could have great matches with that I just would want to see. So there we go, American Wolves on the list. And also, too, as, let's say, I want to say I probably made, out of the 64 logos, I probably made about 50, 55 of them. Some are good, some are really good, and some I really enjoy. There's some that are just real bad. just the dirt worst. So please, please. I know there's gonna be some that are gonna be real bad. But if you feel like you have better ones, let me know. Send it. You know, you could catch me on Twitter, catch me on Discord. You know, you could slide in those DMs. If you got a better logo, let me know. I will gladly use it. As our next tag team, it's Axis. Kazuga Nakajima and Goshiyazaki. I mean, Access at one point it was just a couple of years back, even, you know, last year before the turn, one of the best Japanese pro wrestling tag teams. Just two great heavyweight wrestlers coming together as one. Tremendous stuff. Definitely think they deserve to be in the mention of the top 64 teams of all time, especially when you're talking about Japanese pro wrestling tag teams. They're definitely in it for sure. It's going to be interesting, though, because two guys who really have no pop in the U.S., it's going to be difficult for them, I think, at first, but if we get the pop going, and why not? And that's the one thing, too. I don't know, you can't see our money now because we're blocking the logos, or blocking them with the logos. We don't care about money. I've put $81 million. We could add a lot more to this. If there's going to be people I want to beat the other person, even if they're going to be very anti that and they're going to be pissed, I'm just going to pay them off. Well, money is no issue. This is all for the entertainment of the in-ring product and just seeing who is the best tag team of all time is really the thesis behind that. So there's going to be a lot of upsets. A lot of people are going to be like, whoa, you're going to have this team beat that team? What the fuck? And that is the beauty of not caring about morale at this point. I could have turned it off, but it's just a lot more fun to just turn it on. That's another thing, too. Injuries. Injuries are going to play a big part in this. This is going to be the only one where injuries are going to be turned on just to simulate what a real sport is like. I mean, injuries happen. There's going to be a lot of, let's say, alternates that are going to be involved. So far, we haven't ran into a team that has an alternate, but when that happens, we'll definitely bring it up. As our next team, which, speaking of that, they have an alternate, it is going to be representing the Filthy Animals, air quote. It's going to be Conan and Rey Mysterio Jr. Their alternate, of course, is Billy Kidman. Really, it should have been Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio Jr. as the team, but Conan's pop in Mexico felt like it deserves to be credited as being a part of the top tag teams of all time. Maybe it's not talked about, at least Conan and Rey Mysterio Jr., definitely not, but Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio Jr., during the late 90s and very early 2000s, they were a great tag team, especially like the Cruiserweight Junior tag team, you know, air quotes of it. They were a tremendous team, and I would love to see them, especially in this Premier League, if Conan gets injured, which is someone, if he does get injured, that's someone I'm kind of hoping, if an injury does happen, he's one of them, because him and Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio Jr., they could have some fun matches like the Bucks, Kenta Fuji would be fun, even the Wolves, the Usos, like the DIY, for it. There's just a lot of great like tag teams, a lot of dream tag team matches that could happen. That I would love to see. But the next tag team, keeping with WCW too, it is Harlem Heat. Harlem Heat, as part of Premier League, is definitely a wrinkle in a lot of teams' plans, because they are a big-ass team. I mean, Booker T, God bless him, all of 6'4", I want to say, probably 6'4", 6'5", same thing as Stevie Ray. Giants compared to a lot of these guys, especially like Genta and Namijima Fuji. I mean, Booker T, Jesus Christ. Talk about just an incredible athlete. One of the best, in my opinion, all time. I mean, he could do it all. He's such an entertaining guy. Could do so much great shit. And Harlem Heat, as a tag team in general, all-time wise, definitely deserves to be in like the top 10 talked about. I mean, a tremendous tag team. Well, they were like, I want to say 11-time WCW tag team champions. Maybe not. Maybe not 11. It's a lot, though. I want to say it's more than 8. less than 12. That's in that range. Off the top of my head, I don't remember the exact number of reigns, but I love them. Going through and pre-booking a lot of this stuff as far as, like, not picking winners, that's the one thing, too. Another last thing I gotta bring up. I have yet to determine who's gonna win this thing. This is all gonna come down to, we're gonna be booking this as we go. I have no idea who's gonna win. I have no idea who's gonna be the final 16. This is just all see the pants. All I've done is went into the pre-booking section and set up the times for matches. Haven't picked winners, haven't done that. But that's all I've done, is set up as far as the time frame of how many matches or how long the matches are going to be. But so far, Stevie Ray has been a bit of a problem as far as he cannot wrestle a match that's over 15 minutes. It just is not going to happen. So that's going to be a problem for a lot of Premier League teams. They're going to work Harlem Heat style, and they're going to beat the fuck out of a lot of teams. So that's going to be a lot of fun just as far as contrasting styles, Harlem Heat and Premier League. It's going to be, they're going to throw a wrinkle on a lot of plans. They're going to have to, a lot of those tag teams that are, the wrestling that independent or the junior style, they're going to have to work their style. They're going to get their fucking ass beat. That is for sure. As our next tag team, a team that's going to whip some fucking ass, it is the Briscoe brothers, Mark and Jay Briscoe. In my opinion, in the mid-2000s, not even just the mid-2000s, this is the 2000s as a whole, if you had to pick a tag team of that decade, the Briscoe brothers, in my opinion, deserve to be talked about as probably, if not the best tag team of that era. Unbelievable matches from basically 2002, 2003, up until the end of the decade. Tremendous matches. They were really hitting their peak as far as like the mid-2000s. I want to say like 2006, 2007, 2008, and then even 2009. Just a tremendous couple of years for the Briscoe brothers. Phenomenal team. As far as politically, though, my God, we couldn't be more separate. As hopefully there's not going to be any fucking rebel flags being shown or any flags for the Confederacy shown. Jesus Christ, that's the one thing I always hated that they did, especially being from Delaware. I just never got it. It's like it's the North. Like what's going on? But in ring wise, my God, one of the best tag teams of all time. So our next tag team, it is Edge and Christian. Which that logo, the more I look at it, I shouldn't have done the outline for the Edge and Christian font at the bottom. It is looking real bad. I'm probably gonna have to fix that. Hopefully I can fix it, as hopefully I've kept all the files and whatnot. Because yeah, that is jarring to look at. But Edge and Christian, definitely as far as the tag team boom that happened in the late 90s and the early 2000s, I mean, them, the Dudleys, and Hardy Boys, very, very revolutionary. And they're going to be an awesome team to have, because like them and the Bucks would be fun. Them and the Usos would be fun. Them and the Briscoes, like they have so many teams that it's like, man, that's an awesome dream match. Putting them in the Premier League obviously makes sense, and then of course redoing a lot of those famous matches like them and the Hardys, which is going to be a lot of fun. And them and Harlem Heat too. That's a fun like kind of dynamic to have. You know, one of the top tag teams in WCW and one of the top tag teams in WWE. Obviously, they kind of peaked at various different years. You know, Harlem Heat's decades of excellence was really before. Not decades, but years of excellence was before Edge and Christian became really a top tag team in the WWE. That was kind of 1999, 2000, 2001, but you know, Booker T was just doing his thing there, singles-wise, during that time, so it's a fun little thing. So our next tag team, it is, they have been called a lot of different things, but for this, they're called Doyoshi, Masato Yoshida and Naruki Doi, Speed Muscle, Muscle Outlaws. I mean, as far as junior tag teams go, maybe the best ever. Maybe the best ever. I mean, as far as they have been a great tag team for, God, over 15 years at this point. You know, Masato Yoshino sadly is going to be hanging it up very, very soon. But, I mean, Masato Yoshino, one of the fastest wrestlers in the world. I mean, Speed Muscle, that's no joke. That is for sure. Masato Yoshino, fast as hell. Hell of an athlete. Naruki Doi, the goddamn man. Obviously, want to see them and Kenta Fuji. That'd be a lot of fun. Them and the Bucks. Them and the Usos would be fun. Them and DIY. A lot of different teams. If it's Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio Jr., that's going to be a lot of fun, too. Them and Doyoshi. A lot of different ways they can go about it. As for our next tag team, it is the Hart Foundation. Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart. with their alternate being Owen Hart. So if Jim Neidhart goes out, it's going to be Owen. If Bret Hart goes out, it's going to be Owen. So that's kind of fun how that works. Is that they've been all three of them have been tag teams at one point or another. But the Hart Foundation, again, you see it, they're right next to the Bulldogs. That's a great fucking matchup to have. I would love to see that. I would love to see them in Kings of Wrestling, to be honest. Jim Neidhart's going to be an interesting one because, again, much like Stevie Ray, very much outshadowed by his other tag team partner. I mean, Bret Hart, this is basically Bret. A lot of his stats and his pop and whatnot is to reflect heavyweight, champion Bret Hart, main event fucking hero of Canada, Bret Hart, not just tag guy of Hart Foundation, as far as that goes. But the Hart Foundation, as a whole, one of the greatest tag teams of all time, was really a very influential team as far as the big man, little man tag team. It's kind of weird to talk about Bret Hart as the little man, but especially compared to a lot of these tag teams you'll see. I mean, he towers over like Speed Muscle and fucking Rey Mysterio Jr. and whatnot, but the big man, little man tag team has been so influential, and as far as pro wrestling goes, it's such a great dynamic. Hart Foundation really laid the foundation to that, and they were just tremendous. The Heart Attack, of course, what a great finish. Great fucking tag. They've had some great matches throughout the years. Them and Demolition, them and fucking... Just them and the Bulldogs, too. And they've had some great matches throughout the years. And it's going to be great to see them intertwine with a lot of different tag... Like them and the American Wolves. Davey and Eddie taking on the Hart Foundation. That's a fun little matchup. Them and the Revival. Another fun matchup. There's just a lot of fun dynamics to see as far as the Hart Foundation goes in the Premier League. I think it's going to be a fun team to see. As the next take, we have the Golden Lovers, Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi. Again, it's gonna be there's gonna be so many junior tag teams on this list. I just can't help myself. Junior tag teams, especially like the 2000s and the early 2010s, really just rule Japanese pro wrestling, in my opinion. So many great junior tag teams that eventually elevated to heavyweight tag teams. Some just kind of Dragon Gate tag teams that are just kind of stuck as is. But Golden Lovers, Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi. Obviously, them and Speed Muscle, Doyoshi, Masada Yoshinoya and Ricky Doi, has got to happen. Can't wait to see that. Them and the Revival is going to be fun. Obviously, them and the Bucks. Them and the Hardys would be a fun one, too. Them and Kings of Wrestling, DIY, everybody. If it's Rey Mysterio Jr. and, again, Billy Kidman, that's another fun one. Them and Access is going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. And, again, the Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi, their stats kind of reflect modern day Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi, so that kind of is what it is there. So, at least they'll have some pop going into America. That's going to help them out a lot. Is our next tag team. It is Ring Kampf. It is going to be Timothy Thatcher and Walter, my God. A team that, as far as when people think of the top tag teams of all time, Timothy Thatcher and Walter probably don't come up on the list for a lot of people. But I think, especially for this tournament, especially in the Premier League, they're going to be perfect. They are going to be much like Harlem Heat. There's going to be a lot of guys wrestling a different style when they get into Ring Kampf, because Walter is going to beat the fuck out of you. You're going to get some chops. You're going to get your fucking ass kicked. Timothy Thatcher is going to give you a headbutt to the fucking shoulder, and he's going to destroy you with, he's going to stretch you out. It's a fun tag team, especially for the Premier League. Them and the Bulldogs will be fantastic. Them and Harlem Heat's going to be fun. Them and the Revival. There's a lot of different... Them and Access is going to be great, too. I just can't wait to see Walter's going to sling poor Rey Mysterio Jr. all across that goddamn ring. That's just going to be a fun one to see and see how they do. As far as, obviously, they're going to use, current day stats, so they're going to probably demolish some teams. We shall see, though. As the next tag team, it is Red Dragon, but they're going to be using the Undisputed Era logo and stuff because it's already in the pack, so it's an easy one. It's the one I didn't have to make, so more the merrier there, as that's a lot easier. As we have the Undisputed Era, Red Dragon, more specifically, Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. What a great team. Their alternate is going to be Adam Cole, so, if rather Kyle or Bobby go down, Adam Cole's going to step in, then it'll definitely be Undisputed Era. So yeah, that's just kind of... Let me reference more as Red Dragon throughout it, but if there's an injury that happens, it will be the Undisputed Era. As our next tag team, it is the Latin American Exchange. It is going to be Ortiz and Santana. I'm about to say, about combining them both. It's Ortiz and Santana, not Homicide and Hernandez. As much as I would love that, I thought about them being alternates, but I think it's just fun to do it this way, at least with Ortiz and Santana. It's going to be fun to see them in Filthy Animals, you know, as far as that goes. Of course, the Bucks and the Revival, the Usos, a lot of the modern tag teams you see today, they're going to have a lot of great matches with, you know, them and Undisputed Era. A lot of great matches that they can have. It's going to be fun, though. I think their stats are going to go very well with what's going on with a lot of these guys in the Premier League. So it should be a fun added notion to this. As our next tag team for the Premier League, it is Los Gringos Locos. If you're a fan of this channel, you're a fan of me, you know how much I love this goddamn tag team. I did a mini documentary about them. Los Gringos Locos, Eddie Guerrero, Art Bar. Obviously, Art Bar, bit of a piece of shit. Maybe not a bit of a piece of shit. It was a piece of shit. But inside the ring, these two, during the early 90s, mid-90s, one of the best tag teams of all time, in my opinion, especially during that time period. Just heat magnets in Mexico for AAA. Fantastic. A lot of teams have used a lot of their stuff today. Like when Blake and Murphy were in NXT, they would use their finish. They did the brainbuster into the fucking frog splash. Like, there's a lot of teams that have owed a lot to those Gringos Locos. Especially as far as Mexico goes, probably one of the greatest tag teams of all time. Especially heat-wise, I mean, unbelievable. Did so much business there. Can't wait to see them in Filthy Animals. I mean, if it is Conan and Rey Mysterio Jr., that's actually going to work out perfectly, and that'll definitely be the main event of a show, so we can have that be a show in Mexico. But yeah, I mean, them and Kings of Wrestling is something I really want to see. Them and the Bucks, them and Hart Foundation would be really fun too. Yeah, Eddie and Brett in the same ring. That'd be a lot of fun. Just, a lot of different tag teams I would love to see them wrestle. So that's going to be a fun one. Fun one for sure. Los Gringos Locos, one of the best tag teams of all time. No question about that. As London and Kendrick, our next tag team. London and Kendrick, man, they were so ahead of their time. Two revolutionary figures in the wrestling world. Especially because they were like the first two independent signings to WWE. You know, Paul London, in my opinion, was the first Ring of Honor signee to go from Ring of Honor to WWE. Kendrick, Spanky, however you want to call him, he has been, in and out of the WWE for so many times now, but really was so revolutionary, and a team that was fantastic. The problem was WWE at that time just was not focused on tag team wrestling whatsoever. They've been a great team to see them be put in a different spot, i.e. like a TNA, or even in Japan, as somewhere like in Dragon Gate as the Gaijin team, or like they would have just been so much more, like there would have been so much more great matches out of them if they had guys that could work their style and that could wrestle like they could. Problem was they just didn't have that. They were just the only guys that could work that independent fast style. Paul London, one of the greatest sellers of all time, took so many great bumps, was a tremendous worker. Spanky did shit that was just revolutionary. Him and James Gibson had a match in Ring of Honor. I want to say it was 2005, I want to say, maybe 2000, yeah, I want to say it was 2005, I'll say. Phenomenal stuff. Stuff that just, spots-wise and selling-wise, I was just like, this is fucking genius. Like, they're just unbelievable stuff. Love to see them against the Bucks, against any of these teams. All of these teams. They can have great matches against Harlem Heat, though. They'll probably get, it's a bit of a tall task. Them and also Ring Conf, that'd be a tall task. But other than that, like them and Golden Lovers, them and Doyoshi, them and LAX, Undisputed Era, just there's so many teams. Usos, so many great teams and so many great matches they can have. It's our next tag team. It is the Lucha Brothers, Rey Fenix and Pentagon Jr. Again, a current team, but a team that back in PWG, it was one of the Battle of Los Angeles shows. I want to say it was 2016 Night 2. They had a tag match against Tommy End and Chris Hero. That was just unbelievable. One of the best tag matches I've ever seen. As I love this tag team, I think also too, having a match with Rey Mysterio Jr. and Billy Kidman, or Rey Mysterio Jr. and Conan even, that's going to be a fun one. Them and Golden Lovers, them and Kenta Fuji, Usos, the Bucks, London and Kendrick. I mean, just on and on and on. How many great matches they can have. I mean, like them and the Hardys. Fun match there. Just great stuff that they're going to have. Hopefully they do well. I'm a little scared, but I think they'll do just fine. So our next tag team, the Motor City Machine Guns. One of my favorite logos I did. It's so clean. It's just simplistic and clean. I love it. Everything about it I love. The Motor City Machine Guns, obviously Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley. Everybody knows how much I love Alex Shelley compared to Chris Sabin, but I think together as a team, especially during the mid and late 2000s into the early 2010s, another revolutionary junior team. It's so weird calling them junior team, but the junior indie team that took what Dragon Gate was doing with the combination moves and using it on American TV and just revolutionizing the sport, to be honest, and revolutionizing the way tag team wrestling was done in the States here, where smaller guys are combining moves and they're just having this incredible chemistry and this flow to a match that is just going 110 miles an hour the whole way. Fantastic stuff. Guys that can work both styles, though. They could go fast and they can work, a crazy high spots indie match, or they could slow it down and work a nice technical match. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do. Again, the matches they've already done, like them and the Bucks, I think them and LAX be a fun one, as far as a different style of LAX. Them and Doyoshi, them and the Lucha Brothers, London and Kendrick, that's a fun dream match come to life. The Wolves, the Golden Lovers, geez, that goes on and on and on. There's a lot of great teams and a lot of great matches they can have with a lot of great teams. As our next our next tag team, it is Hayabusa and Jinsei Shinzaki. Again, a one that I love doing, but I kind of see it now, and it's like, they could have used a different border, because I think I used white, and it just kind of looks like it's not existent. If I could change I would definitely make it black, the border, and it'd be perfect. But I'd have to see if I still have that one. Hopefully I still do, so I can add the black border. But other than that, Hayabusa and Jinsei Shinzaki, as far as top tag teams of all time, maybe not talked about, but they definitely have one of the most influential tag team matches of all time with them and RVD and Sabu at Heatwave 98. So, in my opinion, just them being a part of one of the most influential, one of the greatest tag team matches of all time, talked about why they have to be a part of this, and especially in the Premier League, they're going to have a lot of fun matches, like them and Kenta Fuji, them and London and Kendrick, them and Axis even, and they're going to be a fun team, because they're juniors, well, obviously with Hayabusa, but Jinsei Shinzaki kind of borderlines on the junior line. He tiptoes it to where he can do a lot of strong style shit, but he can also work the junior style. He's a perfect blend of kind of what you want as far as a junior goes sometimes. There's definitely someone like that who's a Haas junior, as I've coined the term. But yeah, they're going to be a fun team to see how they do in the Premier League. As our next one, it is Beer Money. It is going to be obviously James Storm and Bobby Roode, but they have an alternate, and hopefully, if it's going to be Bobby Roode hurt, it's going to be Chris Harris, a little turn into America's Most Wanted halfway through. So that's going to be a lot of fun if that happens. Beer Money Inc. during the early and mid 2010s was definitely one of the best tag teams in the world. James Storm, Bobby Roode, tremendous talents. James Storm is, probably going to be talked about as one of the best tag guys of all time, with just his work that he's done with Chris Harris and his work he's done with Bobby Roode. Just, two great tag teams, that he's been a part of. He definitely deserves to be on this. And, a team that I drafted on in the draft series, so that was fun. So we used that same logo I did there. So that's just, going to be a fun little team. I think they're going to have some great matches. Like, them and the Briscoes come to mind as, like, a match I really want to see. And, as far as them and, like, Ring Conf, where they just beat the shit out of each other, them and Harlem Heat. It's just going to be a fun team that can set the tone on a lot of teams. Them and, like, Kings of Wrestling. A lot of fun matches that they can do. So our next tag team, it is the Eliminators. John Cronus, Perry Saturn. Talk about a tag team that was just very influential. Probably, if not the most mind-blowing tag finish that's ever existed in total elimination that has been done by a lot of tag teams throughout the years. As, as maybe, like, in some iteration of that, I know there's people that have kind of went away from that, and there's people that have, done, like, into an Irish whip, like they sweep the leg and then they kick him in the head. There's a lot of different variations that people have kind of slightly tweaked to do, but the Eliminators, Perry Saturn, I don't think it gets talked about enough. A great talent in his own right. He was a tremendous talent in the ring, could do it all. He can fly, he could take it to the mat. He could beat the shit. He could do so many different, there's people that would see him and be like, he's got some Dynamite Kid in him, and that's just kind of wild to think about. He does not really talked about in that type of light. Think about a lot of people, but I think he's tremendous. I mean, he's got one of the best top rope elbow drops I've ever seen. He's a legend in the No Mercy world with his fucking leg sweep. He is, and he had a tremendous run throughout the years. It's just him with Cronus as the Eliminators, and being in the Flock with Moppy. I mean, he had a solid 4 or 5 years where he is talked about very highly in the wrestling world. So I think, as far as the Eliminators go, when we're talking about the top 64 tag teams of all time, they definitely deserve on this list. As our next tag team, it is Stenerico, Kevin Steen, and El Generico. So basically, again, this is taking the modern stats of Kevin Steen and El Generico, and adding them to what they were as Stenerico. This is going to be a lot of fun, because they could have so many great matches, but also have the pop to back it up, too. So they're going to have, Colton Lovers. That's going to be a tremendous match. We really want to see them in Access. I don't know why. I just really want to see that. I think them and Los Gringos Locos would be a lot of fun. Seeing Eddie with Generico is just something that's mind-blowing to me. There's a lot. Them and the Hart Foundation would be a lot of fun. Them and the Bulldogs. Because, again, they kind of took what the Hart Foundation, the British Bulldogs, with the big man, little man, different variety, with Kevin being the bigger man and Generico being the smaller man of the two, and just kind of keeping that same formula of what they did with the Hart Foundation and the British Bulldogs did, where it's not like Kane and someone, where it's a giant fucking 6'10" guy and then a smaller guy, but just a wider man instead of bigger man as far as height-wise, just a wider man and a smaller man. But yeah, they're going to be a fun tag team to see in the Premier League, that is for sure. Our next tag team, it is the Phenomenal Angels, Christopher Daniels and AJ Styles. So this is a team that I personally loved to death in the mid-2000s in TNA. It's so weird. They had such a short-ass run, but they were fantastic. And I know a lot of people might have been wanting to see either, Daniels and Kazarian, or even, AJ with somebody, but I just felt like they were such a tremendous team. They just were not given the opportunity to showcase that. But they, in my opinion, they were one of the most revolutionary teams in the mid-2000s. And I wanted to see them in King's Wrestling so bad during that time. After, when they broke, I was like, man, that's a great team they could face. Or them and the Briscoes, or even them and the Bucks, when the Bucks came on the scene in the late 2000s. They're just they were such a revolutionary tag team, but they were just such a short stint tag team. So it's kind of hard to kind of contemplate and kind of show where they belong in the top 64 teams of all time. I would love to see them and as part of this. So that this is kind of a homer pick, but I think if you kind of just saw their matches and saw how great they were, you kind of understand why they deserve to be on this top 64. So again, it's just kind of more off potential and off of in-ring wise than more than anything as far as career standing point. So our next tag team, it is the New Day. New Day, obviously, we're going to use Kofi and Big E as far as this current generation. Probably the best tag team in WWE as far as legacy-wise and history-wise, and kind of more talked about more as a stable and a faction, a trio. But for this iteration of this tournament, the top 64 tag teams, I think they deserve to be on this. I mean, they've had some great matches. Them and Usos have had tremendous fucking matches. Obviously, the dream match with them and the Bucks, I'd love to see that. I would love to see them and Los Gringos Locos. That's a team that would be a lot of fun. Them and Stenerico, them and Red Dragon. There's a lot of great matches that I would love to see. And then Golden Lovers, another fun matches, but I'd love to see. Yeah, there's a lot of different variables though. I would love to see the New Day involved in a lot of these matches. So I can't wait to see how it plays out. As we're almost toward the end, here we have 2 more left until we get our final 32. So our 31st tag team in the Premier League, it is the world's greatest tag team, representing Team Angle. So Team Angle of Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin, and their alternate is Kurt Angle. So that is definitely an alternate where it's holy shit, talk about an added bonus. I'm hoping if Charlie Haas gets hurt for Benjamin and Angle, because that's probably Charlie Haas, as great as and technically he is. I just felt like Shelton was the better of the two. And to see Sheldon and Angle team would be nuts. But yeah, that's going to be a fun team. Another revolutionary tag team, in my opinion. that could do it all. You know, Shelton with his high spots can do a lot of stuff that a lot of the high spots guy do. Charlie Haas with his technical aspect, and Shelton could also take it to the mat. There, can't wait to see how they play out against like the American Wolves and you know, teams like London and Kendrick, because they just missed each other. That'd been a fun matchup to see. Would love to see them in the Eliminators, actually. I think Perry Saturn getting in the ring with Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas would be a lot of fun to see. Hayabusa and Jinsei Shinzaki, that'd be a fun one to see. Them and, just basically anyone on this list. They could have great matches with just about anybody I've seen. So that's going to be a fun one. Our last team, our final team, it is Generation Next of Roderick Strong and Jack Evans, with their alternate being Austin Aries. Sadly, as Austin Aries is an idiot and a piece of shit, and as an anti-fucking vaxxer, anti-fucking coronavirus guy, he's the worst. But in-ring-wise, hell of a talent, but just Jesus Christ, what an idiot. But Generation Next, Roderick Strong, Jack Evans. I almost had Pac as the alternate, because Roddy and Pac, they were in a PWG tag team tournament, the DDT. I forget what I know it was 2007 was the year, but they teamed up, and it was like basically replacing Jack Evans with Pac was such a great replacement, because they were just perfect together. Such a tremendous tag team. I loved Generation Next. I loved that tag team. Roddy, especially taking like current Roderick Strong, taking that Jack Evans, because Jack, he's great now. I think even taking current day Jack and putting them together, but really this is kind of representing what that era was in Generation Next. These three young guys, four when you count like Shelly together, they were just tremendous together. And really, Generation Next tag team wise, I felt like they were so revolutionary for taking what the Bulldogs did. You know, the homage to the Bulldogs with the fucking Roddy with his Roddy strike, holding the guy up, Jack jumping off the top onto the guy, doing a fucking Phoenix splash and 450 splashes. And Jack Evans blew my fucking mind as a 11, 12-year-old kid. It's just like, this guy needs to be on TV now. Like, this guy's insane. And just Generation Next were one of my favorite tag teams going early on in the independent scene. I always felt like they were ahead of their time, and they were, sadly, had to be broken up. And I would love to see them like now. Like, that'd just be a fun team to see now. Seeing them do the shit they do today would just be insane. And having matches against like the Guns and Golden Lovers and Kenta Fuji, the Bucks, the Usos, the Wolves, Stenerico, the Lucha Brothers, like so many great DIY. Like, there's just so many great tag teams they can have. So that is the Premier League. The 32 teams that are going to be in the Premier League, they will battle each other out throughout the 31-week schedule until there is, I guess not even 8 remaining, just whatever the final 16, and we'll see if which of these teams will move on and which of these teams will not move on. But it's going to be a tough one to decide, as I will hurry up and get all these off the screen, as I just hope you all have enjoyed the video so far. I know we're just under an hour in. This has been quite the intro video, as I accidentally put them back. There we go. As now we get to talk about the National League. There are 32 teams in the National League, and you'll probably see right away that it's a different type of feel to this National League. There's going to be a lot of tag teams that are like, huh, that's interesting, Max. Why did you go with that? But yeah, the National League, there's a little logo there, as we got to get rid of the Premier League, there we go, now you see it, that's a little wolf. How fun. As our first tag team we're going to talk about, it's the Mega Powers. The Mega Powers. Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan. I mean, talk about just a tag team of really the first of its kind, of being, alright, 2 major stars coming together as one on a major platform like the WWE. I mean, revolutionary is only the start of it. I mean, in my opinion, their story of them creating the Mega Powers and the split of the Mega Powers is one of the greatest stories told by WWE. It's so just simple, and it's, a jealous man, with his girl, and it's so soap opera, but it's just perfect, because you understand it. Everybody can understand everybody's point, and everyone, agreed with, there was probably the first time I saw where heels were kind of globally were being like, no, that guy's right. Like, well, why is Hogan trying to, like, get up with Elizabeth? Like, what the fuck? But this team, you'll kind of see why they've been picked. But I just feel like, even though they were very, very limited in their role, I mean, unbelievable staying power, the Mega Powers. What's more than, I mean, to say, I mean, two of the biggest stars of wrestling at that time forming together is the Mega Powers. Fucking iconic. The Nightmare Family as our next tag team. This is going to be Cody and Dustin together, as, you know, as far as that match, the Shield they had was fantastic, and I think they definitely deserve it on this list just because of that match. But their alternate is Dusty Rhodes. So we get to see either Dusty and Cody, and Dusty and Dustin, which hopefully Dusty and Dustin, because they actually teamed, where Dusty and Cody didn't actually team. Just to kind of keep it on the realm of realism with this. Because that's another thing I wanted to do, is keep it on the realm of realism, and to keep these tag teams and these alternates to make sense. I feel like it does make sense, at least with Dusty and Dustin. Dusty and Cody, though, that's not going to make sense. So hopefully Dustin doesn't get injured. This was a team that I drafted in the real world draft, and Cody got hurt for a little bit. But he kept on wrestling through it, though. So that was one thing that happened. Our next tag team is Ten Koji. Obviously one of the greatest Japanese tag teams of all time, especially Japanese heavyweight tag teams of all time. The logo was kind of generic, but didn't really have any, like, basis for it. It was just kind of like, yeah, they're Ten Koji. Like, oh, come on, Hiroshi Tenzan and Satoshi Kojima, two of the greatest Japanese heavyweights of all time, teaming up as one as Ten Koji, and just dominating the late and early, even mid, and even late 2000s. Like, a good solid 10-year decade run Ten Koji had. You know, I love Satoshi Kojima to death. Hiroshi Tenzan, I love him as far as together as Ten Koji, and especially like the early mid 2000s. Like Hiroshi Tenzan was really, like, that's prime Tenzan, and he was on a goddamn roll. But this team's fantastic. I mean, Ten Koji, especially when you're going to see a lot of these other tag teams, like, man, I can't wait to see Ten Koji in this tag team. And especially this next tag team, it is the APA. It is Farook and Bradshaw. As, my God, I mean, as far as a tag team that I think didn't get really the recognition as far as, like, tag titles or anything, but during the really late 90s, early 2000s, they were getting away from the Acolytes, like, role as, like, the fucking Ministry of Darkness henchmen, and kind of into the beer drinking with their little office with the door and that shit. They were one of the most over tag teams, like, ever. I'll be honest, they are so fucking over, and I think people that were fans of that era, especially that era as far as views-wise, one of the most viewed eras of all time, I think they definitely deserve to be on this, especially, like, two guys who became, well, really Ron Simmons before this, but Bradshaw ended up becoming a huge fucking single star, so two singles guys that, in different paths of their way, you know, before APA than after APA for Bradshaw. So that was, I just feel like they're a great tag team, especially in this, in the National League format. I think they're great. So our next tag team, and probably, by a lot of people, the greatest tag team of all time, it's the Road Warriors, Legion of Doom. Road Warrior Hawk, Road Warrior Animal. And personally, probably my favorite logo I made. I really love it. It's clean, simplistic. I love the little fucking, little Hasbro fucking figure. Like, it just looks awesome. It's a cool looking graphic, if you ask me. But I love this tag team. Obviously, you know, in my opinion, they are regarded as the greatest tag team of all time. Let's see if they end up winning this fucking all-time tag league, though. I might have a couple of, nooks and crannies, so I might have, because, I mean, it is going to be a stacked National League, I will tell you that much. This is going to be a lot of heavy hitters, and speaking of heavy hitters, probably the biggest tag team we'll see on this fucking all-time tag league. It is Bam Bam Bigelow and Vader, as they were big, bad, and dangerous at one point, but I just felt like just being Bam Bam and Vader, it's perfect, it's simple. I mean, just two men that were always compared to one another, and they had a tremendous run in Japan. Short-lived, but tremendous. I mean, who's gonna beat this fucking tag team? Ginormous men. Just gonna beat the fuck out of a lot of these tag teams. Like, obviously, them and the Road Warriors is gonna be fantastic to see. Something I did in the All Japan series. Funny enough, you know, having them together as Legion of Doom. Like, they're just fun. This is gonna be this National League, there's going to be a lot of heavy-hitting teams, that is for sure. We're going to keep it going with the Steiner Brothers. Honestly, if you think of the Steiner Brothers as a whole, easily top 5 tag team of all time. Easily. I mean, they dominated the wrestling world. Unlike the Road Warriors where they dominated in like a squash format, but Steiner Brothers just having tremendous matches all throughout the early 90s. Fantastic stuff. Like, them, like Hase and Muto, like that match is tremendous at the Tokyo Dome, but they just, tremendous matches. That's going to be a fun tag team to see how they go moving forward. The Steiner Brothers, like them and Tenkoji, like that. What a fun dream match tag team that is. As far as heavyweight tag teams goes, and them and like APA, another fun dream. Like there's so many great tag team matches that are going to happen in this National League that I'm super excited for. Our next tag team, it is Giant Bob and Antonio Inoki. Is perfectly right next to the Mega Powers because much like how the Mega Powers in the U.S. as far as combining two of the biggest names. This, doesn't get bigger than that. Giant Bob and Antonio Inoki teaming up as one. Unbelievable. Of course, they would split on to form All Japan and New Japan, but two of Ricky Dozan's prize pupils coming together as one. Unbelievable tag team. I cannot wait to see them in the Mega Powers, but I also can't wait to see them in a lot of different other teams that have not been revealed yet. But that's going to be very, very fun to see how they go about this National League. Because Inoki is going to have some pop in America because of the Muhammad Ali fight. But Baba's not going to have any pop in America. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does from that perspective. But I think there's going to be a lot of Japanese shows on this National League because of the talent that you're going to see going to have to happen. And speaking of more Japanese tag teams, it is Strong Big Japan of Yujiro Kobayashi and Daisuke Sakamoto. One of my favorite graphics as well. I love that. They'll have the Big Japan font in there. But yeah, this team, one of my favorite tag teams as far as all-time wise for me. I love this team. Two just beefy bastards. They're going to beat the fuck out of you. And, they're in the perfect spot to beat the fuck out of a lot of teams. I can't wait to see them in Tenkoji. Can't wait to see them in Bam Bam and Vader. Can't wait to see them in the Legion of Doom. Them in the APA. Them in the Steiner Brothers. Just unbelievable stuff. They're going to have some great fucking matches that I cannot wait for. Again, a team that's going to be very, very limited, though, in America, much like Satoshi Kojima and Hiroshi Tenzan, the Tenkoji team. Where, if they're going to be in America for some shows, they might be hurting as far as pop-wise. Next tag team, it is Bad Intentions of Carl Anderson and Giant Bernard. As, I could have went with Gallows and Anderson, but I just felt like Bernard and Anderson, Bad Intentions, they were a much better tag team in the ring-wise than maybe, very short-lived. It's compared to what Gallows and Anderson have been doing for almost a decade now. They've been teaming. But Bad Intentions were a great heavyweight Gaijin tag team that really, it started with Bernard and Tyson Tomko. Then from Tomko went to Bernard and Carl Anderson. When Bernard left, it went to fucking Gallows and Anderson. Just that kind of run of the Gaijin heavyweight tag team for a solid 8-9 years, probably. It was just an incredible run for that type of formula of the heavyweight Gaijin tag team. For whether it's Bernard or Anderson involved, just it was a wild run. But as far as the best tag team to go with, I felt like Bad Intentions was better than Gallows and Anderson was. I think Bernard's better than Gallows, and ring-wise, entertaining-wise. Jesus Christ, Luke Gallows, most entertaining men that ever graced this earth. But Bad Intentions in ring-wise, they're gonna have some fun matches like Demolition and Koji, of course. Them, the Steiner Brothers, are gonna be wild. Them and Strong Big Japan. There's gonna be a lot of fun matches for them. As our next tag team, and a team that could have went to the Premier League side, honestly, it is Rob Van Dam and Sabu. RVD and Sabu, of course, part of one of the greatest tag teams of all time, one of the greatest tag team matches of all time, rather, with Hayabusa and Jinsei Shinzaki, Heat Wave 98. It sucks because with the no-style approach, if we would have went that way, Sabu would have been a lot more, as far as integral a part of their team. But because it's going to be no style, we can't really work to the hardcore style. So it's just going to be somewhat aerial crazy Sabu with, incredible athlete Rob Van Dam. I feel like they deserve to be on this list, and I feel like they're going to do, they're going to be a great like change of pace for a lot of tag teams because they're gonna work a very fast, very junior base style. But it's gonna be a lot of fun to see. So our next tag team, it's the Rock and Sock connection of The Rock and Mankind. So again, much in the same formula like the Mega Powers and Giant Bomb and Antonio Inoki. I mean, two of the biggest single stars at that time in the WWE. The Rock and Mankind. The Rock, he was just a cynical, I wouldn't say cynical, just being a shitty human being to Mankind, but then going to his babyface turn and accepting Mankind and being like, alright, we'll team up. And they were a great tag team. Maybe not as far as great, like, compared to a lot of these other tag teams, but entertaining-wise. I mean, they were a part of the biggest segment of all time, This Is Your Life segment that, I think they had like a 10, I think it was a 10.7, 10.6 rating just for that segment. Like 10 million people watching on a segment, one of the worst segments of all time, to be fair. Kind of like, skit-wise, but it's just funny how entertaining everyone thought that was. It's just kind of funny watching that back and going like, this had 10 million people watching. That's just how powerful the show was at that time. But yeah, I mean, this is a team that, when you kind of see more and more of these teams, are going to be like, that makes sense why you picked the Rock and Sock connection. But yeah, I mean, just a personal favorite, too, of mine as a kid. Like, they were one of my favorite teams. Because being born in 95, really, like, a lot of my first wrestling memories are 99, 2000, when I was 4 and 5. So that just comes into really playing into my feelings as tag team wrestling. I just love the Rock and Sock connection. They were great. The Funk Brothers, Dory Funk Jr. and Terry Funk. I mean, talk about just an all-time tag team. The Funk Brothers, legends in Japan. Weirdly enough, are not really talked about like legends-wise as far as in the States. Obviously, Dory Funk Jr., one of the greatest NWA champions of all time. Terry Funk, arguably could be talked about as the greatest of all time when you think about it. I mean, he's been a part of, 4 or 5 decades of wrestling, and has had great matches in each of those decades. Like, just tremendous stuff. I mean, from the 70s to the 80s to the 90s, even the 2000s had some great matches. I mean, just unbelievable talent. God bless Terry Funk. Dory Funk Jr., incredible talent. We, on Twitter, in the new year, was everyone dunking on Dory Funk Jr., poor fellow, and everyone's just like, yeah, he was boring, he was this, he was that. Listen, we gotta, in my opinion, I think we should respect the people that came before us, and Dory Funk Jr., I think, deserves that respect, because, I mean, talk about just, like, an all-time, like, him and Jack Briscoe, those matches for the NWA title, like, revolutionized the business in a way. They were incredible talents, and especially, like, if they have matches in Japan, definitely going to be some high billing for that tag team, because obviously legends in their own right. As the Four Horsemen, but more specifically the brainbusters of the Four Horsemen is going to be Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard as the tag team, and their alternates are Gene Anderson, or as not Gene Anderson, as Ole Anderson and Ric Flair. Hopefully, Arn Anderson doesn't get hurt, because you can go with Arn Anderson and Ole, or you can go with Arn and Rick, and that can really work out either way. But Tully and Ole doesn't really work as like a tag team, and same thing with our Rick and Tully, doesn't really work compared to what Arn and Arn and Ole and Arn and Ric Flair does. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously the Brainbusters, one of the greatest tag teams of all time, definitely deserve to be on this list. They could have went the other way though too. They could have been in the Premier League and had some great matches with the likes of, like them in the Revival or them in the Hart Foundation. Like, they could have had so many different great matches on that side of the bracket, but here they are in the national side, and they're gonna have some fun matches though along the way, I think, especially with this next tag team, and that is Demolition. As I mean, they were always mocked as the Road Warriors carbon copies, but I think in their own right, they're one of the greatest tag teams of all time, especially in the early 90s where tag team wrestling in the WWF was probably at its peak, to be honest. You had them, you had the Brainbusters, you had, the later years of the Hart Foundation, you had the Bulldogs, you had even the Killer Bees. You just had so many great the Rougeau brothers even. Like, you had so many tremendous tag teams coming through that time that they had some great matches with, and, one of the longest reigning tag team champions of all time. Definitely deserve on this list. Should be Hall of Famers for the WWE, but that's neither here nor there. As our next tag team we're going to talk about, it is representing the Radicals, even though this was just kind of laziness on my part, because I didn't know what to call them. At first, I was going to call them the Revolution, but I was like, nah, let's just call them the Radicals, as it's going to be Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit, with their alternate being Joe Malenko. So if Benoit hopefully gets hurt, we'll have the Malenko brothers. So that's going to be fun. The Radicals, I mean, listen, we all know Chris Benoit, what he did. Before that, in the late 90s, in the mid-90s even, in ECW and WCW, Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit were one of the greatest tag teams in the world. Without a doubt. Like, they did some awesome shit. Problem is, I think as far as being in the National League, they kind of would have been better in the Premier League, looking at this now. But I think they could sell some great matches, like with Demolition, with the Funk Brothers, with the Brainbusters, in Rob Van Dam and Sabu. That'd be, those, as I say that, they're going to have 4 great matches, some great tag teams, and even more that we'll see later on. But yeah, this is going to be the Malenko Brothers. It's going to be some fun shit. Them and the Steiners, that's going to be awesome. But the next matchup, Jesus Christ. And then again, as the next tag team, it is the Rock and Roll Express. Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson, Punk, and Hootie and Punk, as, my God, as, talk about a revolutionary tag team. You don't get the Rockers, you don't get the Hardy Boys, you don't get without the Rock and Roll Express, and just, the Rock and Roll Express, them and the Midnight Express, which, I'll just spoil alert, they're here, we'll see them later on, we'll reveal that when we get there, but just a phenomenal fucking tag team that is one of the all-time best, as I just now see that the Demolition graphic is kind of off-centered. Let's bring that, there we go. We get a little fix it on, a little prefix there. Yeah, they were kind of getting swallowed up by Giant Bob and Antonio Inoki. But yeah, the Rock and Roll Express, great fucking tag team. One of the best ever. I think a lot of people, if you see their stuff looking back, you might be like, what, this team really was like the best tag team of all time? And it's just, kind of the tag team wrestling has evolved so much since then that it's kind of hard to kind of look at that in the same light as a lot of these tag teams you see today. But at one point, yes, they were the absolute best tag teams in the world, and in my opinion, they deserve to be on this. The Dudley Boys, our next tag team, obviously, as far as modern wrestling goes, probably the best tag team of all time, is regarded by many. I mean, their run in ECW is legendary. Their run in the early 2000s with WWE is incredible. In the late 90s, too. But they had a solid, I'll say from 97, 96. We'll go from 96 to 2002, before they split from the draft. Incredible run. The TNA stuff is kind of eh. And then, it's kind of, but from that initial time period, before the draft split, to their ECW run, incredible stuff. And I think they definitely deserve to be on this list, for sure. So our next tag team we're going to talk about is Stan Hansen and Bruiser Brody. My God. Talk about, I cannot wait to see them and the Mega Powers. I can't wait to see them and Koji, them and APA, them and the Road Warriors, them and them and Bam Bam and Vader, them and the Steiner Brothers, Baba and Inoki, Strong Big Japan. Just so many tag teams I cannot wait to see them in. Rocket Sock Connection to Hansen and Brody. What? That doesn't make any sense on paper, but really, that's going to be a fantastic matchup that I cannot wait to see. What a fucking tag team, one of the greatest tag teams of all time. Probably the greatest Gaijin tag team of all time, as far as for Japan goes. Maybe the Funk Brothers maybe have a lot more higher billing, but I just think legendary-wise, Hansen and Brody just running rampant through the mid and late 80s. Just tremendous stuff. Probably, many regarded the greatest tag team that's ever been in Japanese pro wrestling, or even all time. Just the greatest tag team of all time is the Holy Demon Army, Toshihiro Kawada and Akira Taue. Obviously, seeing the Japanese heavyweight tag teams, seeing any of those tag teams enter, them and Tenkoji will be fantastic. Them and Baba and Inoki would be fantastic, because they have kind of similar, Taue and Baba. That's going to be fun. Kawada and Inoki, that's fucking nuts. Strong Big Japan and Holy Demon Army, that's going to be awesome. There's going to be a lot of great stuff that I cannot wait to see them, see wrestling, and just, yeah, that's a great tag team, for sure. Holy Demon Army, one of the greatest of all time. Can't wait to see how they do in the National League. As our next tag team, the Brothers of Destruction, Kane the Undertaker. again, this is, to seeing them take on Hanson and Brody will be nuts. Seeing them take on the Mega Powers will be nuts. Bob and Inoki will be nuts. The Road Warriors, Vader and Baby, like, the list goes on and on. There's just so many great matches that can happen from this National League. It's nuts. It is star-packed for sure. And that's going to be a hell of a tag team to look out for, the Brothers of Destruction, for sure. As the next tag team, it is going to be Jericho. Jericho, Chris Jericho and the Big Show. I always felt like they were, as far as WWE in like the mid-2000s, probably the best mid-2000s tag team. Even though it was very short-lived, I thought they were fantastic. I thought that was really Big Show's like last great like run. Was like him and Jericho, like fantastic stuff. Really changed the way I view the Big Show, because really like 2004 felt like it was kind of like the last hurrah for the Big Show. Then like he teamed with Kane for a bit. That was kind of like just them being like these two like mega like big fucking dudes that are gonna kill people. But then, 2007 comes around, 2008 comes around, and you just see the change to where he changed his gear. He looked like he was lighter. He looked like a whole new show, and he was, he created the punch out of that, and he does the knockout punch. Really, that run was fantastic, and have him and Floyd at the WrestleMania 24. Just a great run in general for him, and I just felt like their team during the mid-2000s and late 2000s of WWE, where tag team wrestling was definitely not the focal point. Felt like they were probably the best tag team during that era, so it definitely deserves to be on the list. The Midnight Express, obviously the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, so this is going to be Stan Lane and Bobby Eaton of the Midnight Express, not just Condrey and Bobby Eaton. Went with Stan Lane instead, just because we use that as the graphic, so might as well use that tag team. I mean, a great tag team, no matter which Midnight Express we pick, but obviously the Midnight Express, and we're going to have the Rock and Roll Express, that's going to happen. I think them and Demolition is going to be a fun match. Them and the Brainbusters, them and the Funk Brothers, there's going to be a lot of fun matches for them. And Cody and Dustin, like seeing Cody and Dustin taking on the Midnight Express is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how the Midnight Express do. As the next tag team, the Rockers, probably my favorite graphic I made besides the Road Warriors. I just love this. It just feels like, this is Rockers at its peak here. Obviously, Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty. Shawn Michaels, his stats, much like how Bret Hart's stats are representing main event. Bret Hart, this is going to represent main event Shawn Michaels, so it's going to be tough for Marty Jannetty to match with those stats. So it's going to be a lot of Shawn Michaels carrying a lot of it. But seeing them and the Rockers, seeing the Rockers taking on the Rock and Roll Express, seeing the Rockers taking on the Midnight Express, them and the Brainbusters, them and the Funk Brothers, them and the Mega Powers. If Marty Jannetty wasn't Marty Jannetty, that'd been a fun one. But just seeing Michaels in the same ring with Savage would have been nuts. Like RVD and Sabu and the Rockers, like that's intrigues me. It's gonna be a lot like intriguing matches, but Marty Jannetty's definitely going to bring down the Rockers as he should, to be honest. I mean, he is Marty Jannetty after all, and he is Shawn Michaels. Our next tag team, it's the Shield. It's going to be Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, with the alternate being Dean Ambrose. I mean, obviously, as far as tag team wise, the Shield during the early 2010s, 2013, 2014, probably one of the best tag teams during that time for sure. More or less associated as the stable, not really the tag team, but I feel like Roman and Rollins, Tyler Black. Yeah, I don't know why I just call him Tyler Black, but Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. They, again, kind of the big man, little man tag team. In the same vein of like the Hart Foundation, big man, little man, Stenerico, fucking big man, little man. You got the Haas, and you got the guy that can fly. I think they're gonna have some great matches, especially like Rock and Sock Connection intrigues me. Just seeing Roman and Rock 1-on-1 and just stuff like that, where I think they're gonna have some fun matches. Just the dynamic of those two. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm hoping nobody gets injured, but if Rollins gets injured, it's going to be okay. And if, Roman gets injured, it's going to be okay. At least it's going to be Ambrose getting in there and then being involved. So our next tag team, it's going to be the Three Musketeers, Tokan Sanjushi, as it's going to be Great Muta and Masahiro Chono, Kaiji Muto, rather. It's going to be Kaiji Muto and Masahiro Chono as the tag team, with Shinya Hashimoto, of course, being the alternate. Can't wait to see them in the Holy Demon Army. Can't wait to see them and Tenkoji, them and Baba Nanoki, them and Strong Big Japan. Like, again, just these Japanese heavyweight tag teams are fucking stacked. Keeping up with that, it's the Violence Giants, Shuji Ishikawa and Suwama. Can't wait. Can't fucking wait to see them in Strong Big Japan, of course, as they've had their matches in the past, but them and the Holy Demon Army is going to be awesome. Like, Suwama and Kawada, and then you got fucking Taue and Shuji Ishikawa. Like, that's just nuts. Tenkoji's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. Awesome to see there. Keeping up with the fucking heavyweight Japanese tag teams, Masao and Kobashi. It looks like they're just big, like, Irish fans, but, that might felt they're green and orange is their colors. So I just kind of, I was like, let's just slant a little bit so it doesn't look like it's just the fucking Ireland flag back there behind them. As Masao and Kobashi, I mean, we gotta see them in the Three Musketeers. We gotta see Kaiji Muto and Masahiro Chono or Shinya Hashimoto. I'm actually hoping for Hashimoto and Muto taking on Masao and Kobashi. But either way, them and Tenkoji again, them and Baba Nanoki, them and Strong Big Japan, them and the Holy Demon Army, of course. Like, just so many great fucking matches that I cannot wait to see between them. It's now the two-man power trip. So, could I have went DX with, like, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and doing the Hollywood Bronze with Austin and Pillman? Absolutely. That was the plan at one point. Then I was like, you know what? I got Masao and Kobashi. I have the Mega Powers. I have the Rock and Sock Connection. I have the Brothers of Destruction. Why not have the two-man power trip in this? Granted, it was a very short-lived, and it's not really, you know, they considered two singles wrestlers combining as one. So, I guess not technically a tag team, basically two individuals coming together as one. But, I think they're going to have some fantastic matches, and I cannot wait to see how it goes. I mean, you can have the two-man power trip with the Steiners. Like, you could have the two-man power trip with Bam Bam and Vader. You could just, there's so many. Hanson and Brody taking on Triple H with Steve Austin. Sign me up. Like, the Holy Demon Army on the two-man power trip. Yeah, sign me up. Like, there's just going to be a lot of great matches to see. The Brainbusters, Arn and Tully against the two-man power trip. That's going to be a fun match to see. There's going to be a lot of great matches to see out of the two-man power trip. Like, this National League is fucking stacked. And keeping up with just a great tag team. The Miracle Violence Connection of Terry Gordy and Dr. Death Steve Williams. Yeah, I mean, it's fucking stacked, this National League. Them and APA, I have to see that match happen. Them and Tenkoji, gotta see it happen. The Road Warriors, Bam Bam and Vader, Steiner Brothers, fucking even Baba Nanoki, the Strong Big Japan team, you know, the Funk Brothers, Brainbusters, Demolition. Give me the Dudleys and the Miracle Violence Connection. Give me the Shield in the Miracle Violence Connection. Jericho, even. Like, that'd be fun. Seeing what can Dr. Death throw around the Big Show? Can Terry Gordy beat the fuck out of the Big Show? Like, Hanson and Brody in Miracle Violence Connection. There's just so many great tag team matches that can happen out of this National League. It's insane. As we're now down to our final two, and one of probably my least favorite logo I've made out of part of this. It's the Outsiders logo. That Outsiders logo sucks. I hate this little fucking, what I did with it as far as the Outsiders logo in the top left corner. It just looks, you can barely fucking read it. It definitely needs to be fixed. But I just, you know, I didn't fix it. I'd suck. As the Outsiders, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, obviously seeing like them in the two-man power trip, seeing them and Hanson and Brody. Like, there's just so many great matches you could see out of this. The Outsiders, you know, basically they killed tag team wrestling in WCW when they came in my opinion, but it is what it is. The Outsiders, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, incredible tag team. Obviously deserve to be a part of this. And our final tag team, we've ran through 63 tag teams, and our last one is Johno and Ghetto. Listen, Johno and Ghetto, in my opinion, early 2000s, when they were part of CTU, and then even when they were in ECW in the late 90s and in War, one of the best junior tag teams in the world. Maybe misplaced here, but I feel like their style fits more with the National League's going on. Because, like, I would love to see them in the Rock and Roll Express, them in the Midnight Express, them in the Radicals with Malenko and Benoit, them in the Funk Brothers, even, like, RVD and Sabu against Johno and Ghetto. That'd be fucking awesome. Sign me up. You know, there's just going to be some fun matches for them But then when they're going to take on, like, Brothers of Destruction and, like, Hanson and Brody and the Miracle Violence Connection, like, they're probably going to get their fucking ass kicked. They're probably going to get dropped on their head and killed in, like, 8-10 minutes. It just is what it is. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Could they have been better in the Premier League? Yeah, probably so. But they also, like, maybe in a perfect world, had I flipped Johno and Ghetto with Harlem Heat, flipped them, put Harlem Heat in the National League and put Johno and Ghetto in the Premier League, would it have been better? Maybe so. But I just feel like them and the Rock and Roll Express, them and the Rockers, and them and the Midnight Express, like, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun little dynamic. But that is your 64 teams, as well. We'll just bring everybody else back out there now. Yeah, let's bring all the teams out there. As far as teams that just missed the cut, Crime Time was heavily considered, just because I loved Crime Time during the mid-2000s. They just were not really represented in the right way, but they just missed the cut. At one point, I had the New Age Outlaws were heavily considered, just because they really were an over-ass tag team, especially during the 97 WWF. Probably not a more over tag team. And so I don't know what I'm going to do with this Premier League logo. Let's just move it down just a little bit. Let's move it down right. Yep. We can move it up actually. Let's put it right there. I like it. There we go. As this is the final lineup. But yeah, is there teams that are missing from this? I would say yes. I'd say probably I probably missed a couple of teams that, like, if you told me, like, you're like, well, why isn't this team in there? I'd be like, fuck, that makes so much sense. But I just kind of went with a basis of, historically, should they have been in this? Personally, should they have been in this? I think a lot of people probably wouldn't have thought of Generation Next to be a part of this, but I love that team. Maybe not Johno and Ghetto, but I love that team. I think as far as junior tag teams in the mid 2000s, like CTU, like Johno Ghetto with Liger, incredible stuff. But there's going to be a lot of interesting things that are going to happen here. This is going to be the first time injuries are going to be turned on, even though it's the first time I'm doing this, but this is the first and only time injuries will be turned on, because I'm not going to do it for the Trios one. Definitely not going to do it for when it's going to just be one person or one lady, or I guess, one person, Jesus Christ. This is what's almost hour 30 in. We've talked about all 64 tag teams, and now that it has been set. So we're going to run 4 shows at a time. We're going to run 4, so we're going to do 2 and 2. So 2 Premier League shows and 2 National League shows, until finally we're at the final show, and we're finally, when it's all said and done. This is going to be every Sunday, hopefully. Fingers crossed. That's going to be the plan going forward. Every Sunday we're going to run one of these. It's going to be a lot of fun. The shows have basically been set, as I'd still have to add a couple of more of the National League matches to the shows. But other than that, all the premier shows are booked and ready to go. The National League, not so much, but we'll get there once we, it shouldn't be a problem. I got the league set up and whatnot, so it should be ready to go. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all are excited for this. Hope you all are interested to see how this format goes moving forward. It's going to be very, very interesting. I will say this. Because this idea has somewhat been done by Wild Sparrow. What he does is he takes people and has them, like, pick 2 different guys and creates, like, these dream tag teams. So I feel really bad because he calls it the league, and I'm doing an all-time league, so it feels weird, because it's like it's kind of been done before, but it hasn't been done on this scale, in my opinion. So that's why I'm very excited about it. Plus, on this in this time frame of doing all-time things, of doing tag teams and trios, and I'm going to do juniors, I'm going to do all-time wrestlers, I'm going to do women, I'm going to do, that sounded weird, I'm going to do all-time women wrestlers, I'm going to do an all-time junior wrestlers. I'm thinking of doing death matches. That's going to be a fun one to do. Just, I want to do this also on TEW and also on Fire Pro, so it's just a lot of different things. This is just a fun, unique way, so it's a series, but it's not in a set promotion. It's set in my own world, in the sandbox. So, it's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you're all excited for it, and I will catch you guys next time for more ATTL as the all-time tag league. Take care, everyone.